1. Like millions of other people, at the beginning of the pandemic, I lost my job. Fortunately, I managed to obtain another job delivering desserts for a bakery. This particular shop was really small, but had 2 small counters in the front window facing outside. Pre-pandemic, these counters would allow a couple of people to sit and enjoy their sweets while watching the world go by. During the pandemic, our city allowed no indoor dining, so we could have customers come in and order, but they had to leave the shop to eat elsewhere. Additionally, last fall, the city shut down the street in front of the shop to allow the numerous restaurants on the street room for outdoor dining. On slow days, I would use one of the counters to set up my laptop to try and find another job, and also to people watch. One particularly slow Saturday afternoon, I noticed 2 kids, probably 4 and 6, running amok. These kids were annoying diners and just creating a nuisance, including pulling down some promotional material we had out front. I finally located the EM who was sitting halfway down the block with someone else with several bottles of wine on the table. Finally, I had a delivery just as the very visibly intoxicated EM comes into the shop with her 2 kids. I hop on my bike and take off. About 10 minutes later, I come back and immediately see these 2 kids are at the counter, and it is a complete disaster. There is ice cream all over the counter, the window, and the wall. EM is nowhere to be seen. I walk into the back and ask the shift lead why the kids are eating in the shop. He doesn't even bother to look up from his phone and just shrugs his shoulders. At this point, I'm irritated because these kids are destroying the front of the shop, and I will have to clean it up. I decide to go out and confront the EM. I'm sorry, but because of city ordinances, your kids cannot eat inside the shop.
Where are you supposed to eat then?
She's literally sitting at a foretop with 2 empty chairs. They can eat anywhere other than inside the shop.
I'm busy right now.
As she takes another very healthy drink of wine. If you cannot get them right now, I will have to call the police. We cannot risk a fine and closure because your kids are eating inside.
Fuck you.
At this point, I start walking back to the shop. I must have realized that this could end very badly for her if she doesn't get her kids and stumbles after me. At this point, all she needs to do is go into the shop, tell the kids to grab their ice cream sandwiches and leave. Or just leave the ice cream sandwiches for me to clean up. But no, she takes it to the next level. She walks in and grabs the first kid's ice cream sandwich and loudly slurs,
"That asshole is making me throw away your ice cream."
She then proceeds to slowly walk the 10 feet across the shop to the trash can while just glaring at me. All the while, the kid is pleading with her to not throw his ice cream away. First ice cream sandwich goes in the trash can, then slowly walks back over to the second child, grabs his ice cream, and proceeds to keep glaring at me while she walks back to the trash can to throw it away. By now, both kids are absolutely hysterical. A potential customer walks in, sees what's happening, and promptly leaves. In one last act of defiance, EM grabs the napkin holder, throws it on the ground, and drunkenly screams at me,
"Fuck you! I will get you fired!"
Finally, she was gone. I walked into the back to see the shift lead still firmly planted on his ass looking at his phone. I grabbed the cleaning supplies to start cleaning up the store. I have not worked in the restaurant and hospitality industry since I was in college in the late 90s, and I never remember putting up with shit like this back then. 2. So this happened a long while back, about 7 or so years ago, and I wasn't too old. I had recently gotten a 3DS for my birthday and I loved it. It was red and black with the X and Y legendary Pokemon on it. Basically, it was awesome. I brought it to school with a new Luigi's Mansion game in it, and these 2 kids came up to me. Now they both looked like twins, but one was much better in behavior compared to the other.
"What you playing?"
"I'm playing the new Luigi's Mansion game."
"Do you mind if we play for a bit?"
They looked younger than me at the time, so I didn't want to upset them, so I obliged. They took the 3DS and went to play on it. I went and played basketball for a bit and came back to grab my 3DS. It was at this point I realized what happened. EK deleted all the save data I had so he could play. There were 2 other slots, for crying out loud. I snatched back the 3DS in shock of what they did. The EK and nice twin went off to their mom to tell her what happened. I pissed off the wrong lady, apparently. She marched over to me in a huff.
"What did you say to my boys?"
They deleted my save data on my game, so I wanted it back.
How selfish can you get? My boys are angels. They would never do that.
It was an accident, OP. We're sorry.
Give me your Xbox.
What?
Clearly you don't deserve it.
This was quite odd to me at the time because a stranger shouldn't really be trying to take my things. She reached for it, but I held on to my 3DS with about as much of my little strength as I had, being so small. She yanked it out of my hand, and that's when my mom came into play. My mom is a loud and proud woman, so if she sees stuff going on, she's not afraid to speak out. She saw her take it from me, and she got right in her face and took my 3DS back. Don't you ever take my child's things, or I swear to God I'll take that Botox of yours and stick it up your ass. The EM slinked away with her 2 children, but not before EK blew a raspberry at me. A good friend of mine noticed this happening and threw a basketball at him afterwards. He yelled and ran to his mom's Honda and they drove away, not wanting to evoke my mother's wrath. I thanked my friend and my mom so much after that and went back home and got all my data back. 3. 2 kids had kept coming into my yard to run around and play. They were about 11 and 12, and my yard was the biggest in the entire block. The first time I told them to leave and not come back. The second time was the same, although a bit louder. Third time they came with their mother and father, demanding to know why I was kicking their kids out of my own fucking yard. I told them because I don't want them there and to be responsible if they hurt themselves. I have now given them strict verbal warnings to not return or I will call the police for trespass. Oh yeah, they came back half an hour later when I went out for a run. I came home, went to the kitchen to grab a drink, and boom, there they were. I was straight onto the phone with the police about how 2 unattended kids are trespassing on my yard for the 3rd time after I had spoken to the parents. Cops came out about 20 minutes later. I didn't confront the kids as I wanted them to be there for the cops, as I also didn't know where they lived. They knocked on the front door and spoke to me. I told them they're still there and I want them gone and their mother spoken to. They spoke to the cops and took them back to their house. I had peace and quiet for about 30 minutes until bang 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 on my door. Yippers, it was the parents again. They went off their nut at me for calling the police. I reminded them that I warned them that I would and they utterly ignored it, and so they got a visit from the police. The cops had apparently told the parents to work it out with me and that if they were called back for the same reason, then a couple pretty serious charges would be laid. So they demanded I give their kids written permission to play in the yard. What the fuck? After they screamed their lungs out at me, they thought I would just give them permission. I told them to fuck off and to never step onto my property again. The next day I finally went to Bunnings, hardware store in Australia, and bought a heavy-duty lock to put on my gate. They were not happy. Once again, kids came around and tried to open the fence but saw it was locked. They screamed, "Fuck you!" and went off towards their house. 10 minutes later, just the mother this time and the 2 kids pounded on my door again. I simply opened the door, told them I'm calling the cops, and slammed the door in their faces. And I did call the cops, all while the mother is basically trying to break down the door. This time they came out faster, about 10 minutes. I later found out they were actually pretty close by, and spotted the 3 of them walking back to their house, and told them to come back to my house to talk. One officer talked to me and the other to them. I quoted the incident number from the day before so he could get up to speed and retell my side. As I'm finishing up, the mother screams out to me that I had apparently given them written consent and permission to play in my yard, and then I locked it just to spite them. Both the officer and I asked to see the written consent because I knew it didn't exist, but the cops have to follow up on every claim, I guess. Surprisingly, she pulled out a piece of paper that said something to the effect of I, the owner of my address, do hereby grant her kids permission and consent to freely and openly play in my backyard. I also take full responsibility for their safety while in my yard. It was signed by a signature that didn't even resemble my real one. It would be like comparing the logos of Starbucks and McDonald's. I burst out laughing and asked her if she had really just tried to forge the signature of someone she didn't even know the name of. I could see the cops have a slight look of bewilderment and amazement at the level of this woman's stupidity. They asked if I wanted to press charges for obvious reasons, and I gladly said yes. Court went for only 3 sessions, and the mother was sentenced. I don't remember the exact length, but it was at least 6 years. This was about 5 years ago, so that crazy woman is not too far away from getting out. And to clarify, just in case anyone's wondering, the 6-year sentence was for her trying to forge my signature, among other things too. Apparently she was swearing at the judge. This was 5 years ago, and I haven't thought about it since. 4. The town I live in is small, and when I say small, I mean it's sometimes not even included on maps. It's just a little farm town surrounded by farms, and there's just not much here. One thing we do have is a cemetery. A very, very big cemetery, and also very old. It can actually be quite beautiful. If you're the kind of person who likes peaceful nature walks and quietly enjoying beautiful views, this cemetery is the perfect place to go walking around. I myself am a single mother, and when I moved here, my child became almost instantaneous best friends with my neighbor's youngest daughter. At the time of the incident, my daughter was 4, hers was 5. Well, with not much else to do, we'd all get together and go walk around the cemetery. So it'd be me, my daughter, my neighbor, and her 2 daughters. The other daughter is older by a few years, and my neighbor's boyfriend. We did this every day for months without any issues, but this day would be different. Now, to try to give you a clear picture, the cemetery is so large that although it has a main entrance, it is necessary to use if you're driving. There's many side places to enter from if you're on foot. One such side, the oldest and in my opinion the most beautiful part of the cemetery, was closer to where my neighbor and I live, so that's where we'd always enter and exit from. To get there from where we lived, we had to cross a busy intersection and go down a dirt road a ways. There's a house on the very corner of the intersection, and then 2 other houses we have to pass in order to get to the cemetery. So 3 houses total after we cross the street, before we get to the cemetery. The day in question, my neighbor's boyfriend and oldest were well ahead. My neighbor is in the middle, trying to encourage our littles to move a bit faster, as they kept getting distracted and stopping. Flowers, butterflies, sparkly rocks. They were very easily distracted by anything that caught their eye at that age. And I brought up the rear to make sure nobody got left behind. So everything starts out fairly normally. We manage to get past the second house, important, before the littles get distracted. So of course we start encouraging them to catch up to the neighbor's boyfriend and older child. The boyfriend, who's in the very lead, turns around and calls out, "Come on, girls." Eldest child also turns around and parrots this, only louder, adding in a brag of how she's winning. It wasn't a race, but kids, Definitely nothing weird or unusual, or so we thought. Suddenly a car turns down the road, so this time my neighbor and I also call out, "Come on girls, take my hand." And we each grab our kids' hands so we can be safe as the car passes. Just as suddenly, a child who looked even younger than ours darted dangerously close to the road from the corner house on the intersection. Remember, we're already past the second house at this point and are actually now passing the third. Now, of course, as a mom myself, not even knowing this kid, I have a mini heart attack. But luckily some adult must be nearby because the kid gets yanked back from the road at the last minute, and we proceed to enter the cemetery. All is well that ends well, right? Wrong. Enter Crazy Mom. This woman runs into the cemetery screaming at us about how we can't walk down that road, it's a public road, and about how she's calling the police because we tried to kidnap her child. WTF. Of course, me and neighbor immediately defend ourselves against this insane accusation by pointing out that we have every right to walk down a public street, and we were nowhere near her kid. Crazy Mom isn't having it, insisting that because we called out "Come on, girls" to our own children, we were trying to kidnap her daughter. There's no real good ending, I'm afraid. We tried a few times to point out all the flaws in Crazy Mom's argument, but she simply wasn't having it, and we got tired of arguing with Crazy, and finally told her to just call the cops then, and walked away. She screamed at us a bit about fleeing the scene, which we ignored, and eventually she quit following us. Cops never did show up, and we continued these walks until COVID hit. My daughter will be 7 this year. But never saw that lady or her kid again, nor had we ever seen her before, so apparently she didn't even live there. No idea if she was friends or family of the people who did live there, or even possibly a customer, as it's an older couple who actually live there and sell raw honey from the bees they own. 5. To start this story, me and a small group of my friends went to a water park to celebrate my birthday. We grabbed some beers in the store nearby and we got to the water park. They had new water slides and we were looking forward to test them out. And this is where the story begins. There is one water slide which had a height limit. We were quite excited to try it out, and mostly adults and teens were allowed on this ride. Entitled Dad arrives with his kid, around 5 years old, and the lifeguard said no to him. Edie then begins arguing about how they were going to go to that slide together. Lifeguard said no, because this would be dangerous for him and the kid, and the father alone was way beyond weight limit. Since that slide was open for half an hour at the time, and had very strict rules, we were getting quite pissed off. Someone in the line had started arguing to the ED, and he did what we did not expect. He backed off. Lifeguard then apologizes to us and prolongs the time we're allowed on that slide. But the story isn't over yet. There were also 2 more slides which could be used by a parent and a smaller kid at the same time. Edie then proceeds to go on that water slide with his son. When me and my friend simultaneously finish off both our rides, we saw that the kid had played around the end of the slides. Then Edie came and proceeds to put the kid in the end of a slide and was then taking pictures of him. Suddenly there was a boy in teen years approaching on a slide and stopped at the very last moment. Edie starts swearing at that young teen immediately. The dialogue went something like this.
"Look at how reckless and stupid you are. You almost hurt my kid."
"I'm sorry, mister, but your kid shouldn't have played here in the first place."
"Oh yeah? Show me where it says that my kid isn't allowed to play here."
The teen then points at the rules sign which was above Edie's head. We started to laugh hysterically.
"Well, you can see my kid was playing here and you didn't slow down."
There was no way he could see the kid playing. "I'm sorry, mister, but if you want your kid to play, you have a pool for kids."
"Pool of kids is full of children already. My son doesn't want to be there."
Me and my friend looked at each other and were ready to intervene because it looked like things could go ugly. The kid also started crying. "It's really not my fault. You shouldn't have left your kid in here in the first place."
"Well, where should I leave him then? It would be your fault if my kid got hurt, you understand?"
Next part I didn't see since I went to look for staff working there, but they were already on their way. I think that the father calmed down and went home after that. The saddest part is, that wasn't the first time that someone had let their kid play there, but parents were not arguing like this, Entitled Dad. And also there were no lifeguards at that moment there, so they couldn't warn the father. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Impractical Proudness of Parents. iPop, episode 62. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And if you enjoyed the video, then please do click the like button and leave a comment. And if you would, share it around to anyone you think might enjoy it. That greatly helps the channel out. Okay, I have a little bit of a shout out here. It goes to Reddit user Axelite01. And they were the author of story number 2. That's the story with the 3DS. And the mother with the creative punishments. Okay, I had to record this video twice today. Because the first time I did it, I was just far enough away from the microphone that the echo was more noticeable. At least it was more noticeable to me than usual. I was like, can I save it? Can I save that audio? And you can't, because once you get echo in, you can't take it out. That's the annoying thing. But other videos I recorded in the same session seemed better. They were okay. They were salvageable. But just the iPod video. I guess I just must have shifted positions in between doing that and the others. Well, it's done now. It's, let's see, Monday is Amazon's Prime Day, and I've got a bunch of stuff that I've been meaning to buy, that I've been hoping to get a little bit cheaper, and some of that includes sound treatment for my room. So I will check those, and if they go on sale, great. If they don't, okay, fair enough. I will get them anyway. I'll just do it a few at a time until I have everything I need. I have a rough idea of what I do need. The roof is going to get treated with those kind of acoustic foam squares, which I hate, but they're on the roof so I won't see them. The walls will be getting acoustic panels, and I've looked around and it seems the best option is a company called Gick. They at least do different colours, so I'll probably go black. At least a couple black, then maybe a couple of other colours to alternate. I'm going to need quite a lot of those. That's 4. Ooh, I'm going to need about 16, I think, for this room. Yeah, and I'm also going to need my room has a little bit of a hallway in it, and that causes a lot of echo. It's not really long, it's just a few feet, but that's also going to need, I think, a curtain of some kind. I'll have to go over that. This is probably very, very boring, but it's just all Hellfreezer thinking aloud. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.